Good morning, everybody.
Hello. We are ready to get started.
Yeah. So first things first is I want to ask a question. There's a lot of people here today. Does anybody feel like the market's competitive? Has anyone written an offer here in the last 30 days and it not get accepted?
Nobody.
All right, nobody? So we understand how competitive the market is now. One thing I always like to say about markets is there's only one constant: things change. I've been in the business since 2005. I've seen seller markets, I've seen buyer markets. I remember sitting around a table with agents saying, I don't want sellers right now, I only want buyers. Right? Could imagine that, let me repeat that. I don't want any sellers right now, I only want buyers because it was such a buyer market back in 2009. So the only constant is things are gonna change, but we are in the most hyper-competitive market right now. We always ask, are there more transactions right now or less transactions? This is the interactive part. More transactions or less transactions? More transactions. There's more transactions out there in the MLS last year, but what happened was there was more buyer demand than ever. Every time we see the mortgage rate go up a little, is that creating more demand or less demand? It's creating more demand because people want to get in there before the mortgage rates go up. If anybody watched my market update, we showed the trends of what happened. This is the first time we're going to see prices go up while rates go up. And I think we're going to hit stagnation. So what we really wanted to do today was we wanted to talk about ways to get creative and without competing. Let me ask a question. I'm going to survey the room. Who here is competitive? I think all of us are competitive, right? Trick question. We're all competitive. We wouldn't be in this business if we weren't competitive. There wouldn't be so many awards in this business if we all weren't competitive, right? I'm competitive. But I also I have a saying, when everybody goes left, I like to try to figure out how to go right. I'm competitive and I want to win, but I also want to do it with the least resistance and the least path of resistance. So what we're going to do today is we're going to try to unpack some ways that you guys can be competitive, get your deals accepted while competing in less noise, because there's a lot of noise right now.
Has anyone here with their offers in the last couple months heard this term? Highest and best? Has anyone heard multiple offers? Right? So what we're going to unpack today, guys, and spoiler alert, there is no gimmick, there is no magic way, magic pill. There's no one thing you can do that's going to allow you to find properties for your clients, your buyers, without competing. It's multiple things, multiple strategies. This is actually one of the fun trainings because I told Carl yesterday, I said, wow, this is one where we're going to say, you might have to implement all of these, right? We're usually telling you guys, pick one thing and try to focus and implement that before you try something else. Well, in this hyper-competitive market, there's no magic pill to generate inventory, but we're going to help you guys figure out how to do that for your clients and be in a less competitive environment. So, training will not impact your business, action will. So this stuff is all theory unless you take action. And many of the things we're going to talk about today may make you a little uncomfortable. Anyone here follow me and saw my video this morning? Couple? 1, 2, 3 people? Right? I'm not naturally comfortable in front of the camera. But I do it because it allows me to help more agents, right? And generating properties, sourcing inventory for your client, you may have to step a little bit outside of your comfort zone and take action. And another reason why this is such an important training, Chris, who's sitting here from the Cranford office, I showed him this earlier. We were talking about what we're going to unpack today. And I showed Chris that yesterday I got, how many texts, Chris? 3 texts yesterday from wholesalers looking to buy my properties. I showed them on my phone. So the inventory is there, and we're going to unpack some numbers, but you have to take action. They are taking action. Just yesterday, I got 3 texts for people looking for inventory that were not realtors, right? So we're going to unpack what action to take to be able to source more inventory and make it less competitive for your clients and get more deals closed on the buy side.
You know, I like to say fire, aim, shoot. No, fire, shoot, aim. See, I can't even say that right. Fire, shoot, aim sometimes. Not everyone probably agrees with that philosophy, but it's sort of what I've been doing to take action over the years. Because listen, you're gonna make mistakes, but what I always hate seeing is people get stuck getting ready to get ready. Has anyone ever felt like they've been stuck getting ready to get ready? I know I have, right? You're trying to do the perfect mailer. You're trying to do something so perfect. You're getting ready to do it. Tomorrow I'm gonna do it. Tomorrow I'm gonna make the call. Tomorrow I'm gonna send the mailer that you get lost getting ready to get ready, right? So we're gonna talk about fire, shoot, then aim, so you can skip the getting ready to get ready part.
Carl, is there inventory in this market? I have an inventory. Is there an inventory problem?
I mean, I just talked to a realtor who said they have about 3 or 4 listings coming on the market from a mailer, so I think it's a listing inventory issue if you don't have the listings.
I think you're right. And that's what our CEO, Nick Bailey, said. If there's an inventory problem, it's because you don't have the inventory. So we're gonna unpack here how to get the inventory for your clients. So let's look at a snapshot of today's market. If anyone agrees, you guys can interact here. Let's start with not enough inventory to show. You get a buyer lead, they wanna see something, 3 beds, 2 baths, whatever town, and you go in the MLS and there's what? Nothing, exactly. Well, can't get an appointment, right? You have anyone ever look in showing time? I was walking through the office and an agent like threw their hands up and I said, what's wrong? Showed me showing time and you just see these little black boxes that the whole thing is just like, nothing's available. And I'm like, what's that? And they're like, no appointments. Anyone here have that challenge? Yep. Right? Mile long lines. You get to a showing and you're like, it's like you walk into the bakery and it's like, take a number. Right? So that's snapshots of today's market. And our favorite, multiple offers, right? And getting outbid. Well, some of the strategies we're gonna unpack will help with that. But everyone agree that's the market we're in today? All right. So, I don't know where NAR really surveyed, but I'm joking, it's really the country. But they're saying in 2022, there's about almost 4 offers on every property. I think in our market, maybe because we're densely populated outside of New York and the Philadelphia metro, it's more than that. Anyone want to tell me what they think the number is? 10. I think there's a consensus we're in double digits, right? But the national survey shows that the numbers doubled from 2018 to now. Actually, let's say 2019, 2020, it's doubled. So that's how competitive this market is. So you need an advantage, you need an edge, or you're going to run into the same challenges day in and day out, which we just covered in the last slide. Multiple offers, long lines, can't get in, etc. So how do you source deals? How do you source inventory? Carl, have you ever heard of deals closing without being on the MLS?
Well, I mean, I'm not sure. Is there a rule at realtors that we can only sell houses that are on the MLS? Has anyone dealt with a for sale by owner over the years? Right, so a lot of this is having to create the inventory.
Correct. Has anyone here recently sold something that wasn't listed? Show of hands. 1, 2, oh, well, there we go. Right, so it's creating the inventory. And that's what you need to do for your buyers. So what are some of the strategies? Door knocking, cold calling, mailers. I got really excited yesterday. I'm not gonna go too much into this, but one of our agents did a mailer campaign and got 10 calls on Saturday. Right? The inventory is there. If you're proactive in reaching out, asking for the business and creating the inventory, it's there.
So I want to survey, because I was in a class yesterday where we talked about this. Do you think there's more for sale by owners or less right now? What do you guys think the percentage of people who used an agent was last year? Let's do this. Raise your hands if you think it was less or more than 80% that used an agent. More than 80% used an agent. Right? Who thinks it was more or less 90%? Raise your hand. Over 90% people last year sold their house with an agent. Do you guys know what the biggest factor was that people are still using agents? Trust. the trust of an agent to guide them through the process. Over the last 10 years, all we've heard about is technology companies going to come in, disrupt the industry, put the agent out of business, right? They're going to sell you products for $49.99 a month that's going to drive you to bankruptcy for seller leads and all the other stuff that's out there. But I think what we're seeing now is in such a tight market and most competitive market is people are still using agents. So I think it's really good for our industry to show that the value of the agent is still there. But in your marketing, you need to be demonstrating how you can guide people through the process, how you can build that trust. That is more important now than ever. But I just thought that was interesting because if you had asked me if there was more, if FSBOs represented more than 10% of the market, I would have said yes. Has anyone ever heard about iBuying? I know you've all heard me talk about iBuying a lot, right? Yep. What do you think iBuying represented as the market last year? Less or more than 5%? Less. It represented 1% of the market. We are talking about companies spending billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars to get less than 1% market share in the industry. If you've seen the stock prices for the Open Door, which was one of the big ones that's ran by one of the founders of Facebook, the stock has plummeted because they are hemorrhaging money. And as the market adjusts and become more of a normal market, it's even going to be tougher for the iBuyers to compete. And again, we never even really saw iBuyers come into our market because we all know New Jersey is its own animal, right? So just to think about that is don't give yourself preconceived notions of like, well, this FSBO is not going to list with the realtor or more people are going to do FSBOs because the data would tell you otherwise.
And don't think they don't need us, right? Don't think, oh, well, they can just put the sign and get it sold. There's a lot that happens after you get the contract. Would we all agree on that? Absolutely, and that's where they need us, our value. And of course, still getting them the best price. We know the stats. FSBOs yield a lot less than they would even after paying commission. So is there, give me guys some reasons why we're not calling more FSBOs or door knocking. What are some of the reasons why agents are not doing as much of it? Anyone want to throw anything out? Fear.
I think in this market, FSBOs are a lot more confident that they don't need an agent because houses are being sold without agents actually having to do anything. So.
They're getting contracts, marketing it on their own, right? Those are good reasons. They're mean? Good one. You got me laughing. That's a good one. They are mean because they're confident, right? Who said confident? They're mean because they're confident. But they don't know what they don't know. And there's a whole lot more to getting a transaction closed than getting offers, right? Deals die. I think a couple people in here have seen a deal die now and then. Every now and then, deals die, right? But they don't see that. They just see I save on commission or I'm handling it. Here's a good read that helps you understand what they're looking for. Because if you can understand what the seller's needs are or what they want, that will help you be more confident. The book, I don't know if you read this, Carl. I have. Getting Past No. You have?
I have not.
Not. Okay. Getting Past No. Really good read where it helps you understand what the other side wants. Because if you can understand what their objective is and how you can help them, wouldn't we all be more confident in making more calls or knocking on more doors, right? So if you need a good read before you start doing these things, here's a good read. So let's jump right into it, Carl. Let's start with strategy number 1. Anyone here ever use a farming letter? What's the feedback?
Every time I send a mail or I get a lead.
Works. Anyone here not try it yet? Farming letters work, guys. I know for a while it was kind of out of style. No one was farming. Letters seemed a little bit, old school because everything was technology, as we just talked about the iBuyers, et cetera. But farming is back. I want to say it never really went away. And the agents that are farming have consistently, like Karen just mentioned, gotten a listing.
Olivier, not to butt in.
Okay.
I'm a little sick of hearing about farming letters. Right? You go on every YouTube, every guru, they're talking about farming letters. They work. But you know what the real difference is with farming letters? Farming letters work. But what do you do once you get that phone call? How are you following up? What is your system with the farming letter? Do you send one letter and then just say, okay, I got one phone call, that's it? If you're sending a farming letter, what are you doing? You're really concentrating on a certain area. So what is your process once you send the farming letter? Are you then door knocking? Are you then somehow getting the data of their email? You're getting the phone numbers, you're calling. Right? Even let's go back to the objections, the power of saying no. They usually say it takes 7 no's to get a yes. Yep. So what is your process of after you send out the farming letter? If you send out a farming letter, how do you know who's calling off the letter? Do you have a tracking phone number in there? That when somebody's calling, because I guarantee if you sent out farming letters and you had a tracking phone number and they called it right now and you knew it was that farming letter, you would run me over to go pick up the phone call. You know what realtors are really bad at doing? No, picking up your phone. We get bombarded with phone calls. That how many times do you get phone calls from a Seattle? You're worried it's someone trying to sell you something. How many times have you not picked up the phone and you could have and it was a lead and then you can never get back in touch with that lead and you were sick about it? It's happened to me. And you stared at the phone number. You stared at the lead calling you. You're like, I don't really feel like picking it up. It could be spam. And then you realize it was a lead that slipped through your phone. I always say you want to increase your business, pick up your phone. But anyway, so let's going back to this follow-up is so you send the letter. Then what? What do you do week 2? What do you do week 3? Maybe you door knock. Maybe you do a door hanger. Maybe you send letter number 2 with a different message week 3.
Carl.
Olivier.
So you're telling me that I send a letter and the phone's not going to just blow up?
And it might, but that phone call might not be ready right now. And that phone call might not be ready now, but they might be ready in a few months. What's your incubation process? I was having this conversation with an agent the other day. Because I'm a glutton for punishment, went on a heavy prospecting blitz for short sales. Back when there was a lot of short sales. So what did I do? I sent a farming letter. I had a tracking phone number. I had a special URL that would take them to a landing page so I can get the data, because they might not be ready right now, but they might be ready in a few months. But if you're not there in front of them in a few months and they list with someone else, not shame on that prospect, shame on you for not following up and putting them into your funnel. It's marketing 101. Who here has ever filled in a contact form online for a company and then you start getting the emails, the calls, they're selling you, it could be a watch, shoes, whatever it might be, right? We're calling that your top of funnel. Your goal is how do I take somebody from that top of funnel who sparked a little bit of interest into something you sent them and bring them all the way down your funnel to the sale. And to the sale is working with you, right? That is a marketing basic. So when you send out that mailer, think about, okay, great, I sent out the mailer. Step 1. What's step 2? What's step 3? What's step 4? Because the more you do it, I always tell people, don't get attached to the immediate result. Get attached to your process of how you're doing things. Because usually if it's mundane and it's boring and it's a process, it's going to work. It's like going to the gym. I say it all the time. I went to the gym yesterday, I did the elliptical for a half hour, I ate grilled chicken, but I didn't lose 30 pounds. Doesn't mean it doesn't work. But if you get attached to that process, so always think 3 steps ahead. I send out the mailer. What does that mailer say? What is gonna resonate with that person to either call you or go to a website and give them your information for a return of something of value? And then once that happens, what does that process look like? And you can automate some things or whatever else, but the follow-up is where the real difference with the I feel like the farming letter is like the sexy subject right now, right? Farming letter, farming letter, farming letter. What do they call them? The golden letters? I've heard so many different names for them. But the real difference is gonna be what you do once they inquire in that letter. Does that make sense to everybody? So think about what you can do once you get that lead and how you can really dominate that area.
Exactly. Anyone here at their own house ever get a farming letter or postcard from an agent? Yeah.
I save
How many?
them.
Everyone, right? How often, though, does that agent follow up? You get to just listed, just sold, one and done. And that's the point of this. It's not just the letter. There's no magic letter. There's no magic pill. There's no perfect design or graphic or postcard or what you're going to say that's going to get people to just react. It's the follow-up. They may not need to sell today, but they may need in 6 months or 2 years. Who here plans to be in the business in 2 years? So you have to follow up to get through that life cycle of when they need to sell. And what's interesting too, because I get them at home, and I never know about the agents. It's just listed or just sold, but no one's introducing and no one's following up. And I noticed the pattern. It's one and done when they list or sell, but no one's really following up and building a relationship and letting me know that they're the local expert and this is who I need to use as a resource when my time comes. So the magic is in the follow-up. And for those of you that need help with a letter, this is a letter that we shared previously in a previous training from Wayne Frederick. If anyone needs it, we'll get it over to you. But in this market, guys, if you have clients, and we're talking about how to get offers accepted and be in a less competitive environment, if you have clients, don't send mixed messages, right? If you need to find inventory for your buyers, if you need to get a deal done, if you need to source inventory when you don't have any, don't make it about, I'm putting a sign in front of your lawn, I'm the best marketer, I'm gonna get you top dollar. If you send the seller two mixed messages, they don't know what's going on. You confuse them.
Olivier, can I give it a message? Has anyone gone onto a FSBO appointment? They call the for sale by owner. They said, hey, I have a buyer interested in your area. They say, hey, come over and take a look at the house. Has anyone ever done that? Has anyone ever thought that was a listing appointment? Because I've talked to agents, I have a listing appointment. I said, no, the buyer's letting you see the house to see, the seller's letting you see the house to see if you have any buyers. You're going in there thinking it's a listing appointment. They're going in just to think they're showing you the house. That's why when I do trainings on for sale by owners, I always say you gotta set the right expectation.
Correct.
Right? I am not coming there to preview your house. I am coming to your house to talk to you about how I can market it and get you top dollar in this market. So like Olivier's saying, it's always setting that right expectation.
Correct. Correct. So, strategy number 2, social media. Anyone here have any luck generating clients from social media? Love it, right? Anyone here part of a town Facebook group, East Brunswick, Hamilton, Cranford, and you see the post I have a client looking to move in town, anyone know anything off market? Well, guess what? That stuff works.
And a little disclaimer, don't spam these groups.
Yeah.
Right? Because you've seen those people that do that too, like buy my tea, buy my makeup, whatever else. Like follow the rules of the group. Like I know a lot of groups that you could post your stuff on Monday, but you don't want to be the spammer either.
Correct. And guys, show of hands, how many people here believe that not every seller's primary objective is to maximize the value? Right? What is it sometimes? Timing, terms, convenience, right? If you guys had to sell your home, would you want a line of 50 people outside your house today? Who would? No one, right? So this is how sometimes you get a seller to reach out to you, raise their hand, because they don't want the headache of 50 people in their house. They don't want the inconvenience of having to keep the house maintained for showings. True story, a couple years ago, my wife and I are selling a house. Mind you, we're both agents. Put it on the market, and we had 30 showings in 30 days. And about week 2, my wife says, with the kids, I can't do this. Get an offer, get it done. And I'm like, let's just be patient. We're not in a rush. She's like, get it done. You don't have to do this. You don't have to deal with this, right? And it became a matter of convenience. Guess what we did? Took the first offer we got. Happy wife, right? Actually, I got a new saying for that. Happy spouse, happy house, right? But that's what sellers sometimes look for. They don't want to put it on the market, but they have a desire to sell. Would we say most of our clients are on social media? So this is another means to follow up, to let them know you have a need, and to generate people that need to sell but don't necessarily want the headaches of the long lines, putting it on the market, random people coming in and out. There's multiple reasons why many sellers choose to not list their homes, but yet they need to sell.
Well, Olivier, let me ask you, do most agents right now have more than one buyer?
I think the consensus would be yes.
All right, raise your hand if you're working with a buyer. Keep your hand up if you're marketing your buyer. I'm pretty impressed, a lot of hands up.
Good.
This market, you need to be marketing your buyers like you market your listings. And social media is one of those ways. You're connected to a lot of people, especially if you have deep roots in a town. I have a buyer looking for XYZ. If you're thinking of selling, send me a direct message. So you have to be marketing. These farming letters, you're marketing your buyers. Everybody right now says they have more buyers than they know what to do with. So you got to market that buyers because now you're not competing on the MLS with everybody else.
Hey, Carl, you ever heard of this Facebook Marketplace thing?
I heard it, yeah.
Yeah. Anyone here ever use that for rentals or something? Rental sales, marketplace? So for sale by owners are online, whether it's Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, forsalebyowner.com. What if you shopped your buyers to those for sale by owners? Right? If they are already online and you have the buyer, use social media as an avenue because they're marketing it there. Other than putting a sign out, what do you think a for sale by owner is doing? Nothing. Or they're going on social media and posting it, telling their friends, please share this, I'm trying to sell my house. Well, if you see that, or they're putting it on Marketplace, or they're putting it on Craigslist, whoever's still using that, right? That's where you can shop your buyers to. So there's huge opportunity through social media. Now, this is one of my favorites, Carl. Do you know why?
Why?
Because I like to go after the old expireds and old withdrawns. And there's a reason why. So many agents focus on, this just came off the market yesterday. Hot sheet, hot sheet, hot sheet, which is great, right? But someone that listed their home in 2018, 2019, can we say it was a different market back then? Everyone agree? Yep. Hello? Yeah, great. Right? Different market. Were there homes that were expiring because they were overpriced? Were there homes that couldn't sell because wasn't a demand for it? Absolutely. Then what happened? The last 2 years, market shifts. We're in a pandemic. People froze. For a couple months, nothing happened. And everyone said, I'm going to sit the sideline because I don't want to deal with this. The lines of 50 people wearing masks, X, Y, and Z. But guess what? There was a motivation to list and sell their house. People don't list for fun. Does anyone here want strangers in and out of their house for fun? No, right? So if there was a motivation and they did not put it on the market, guess what that's called? Starts with no. There you go, bingo, opportunity. Opportunity, guys. And even 2020, up until 2020, 2018, 2019, 2020, guess what you're calling with? Great news. Market's up. Think about it, 2018, 2019. Anyone want to throw out a percentage of how much they think the market's up from older expireds or withdrawns from then? 22%, right? So imagine you're calling with great news that market's up, I can sell your home now, and guess what? You don't have to sit on the market again. I have a client for you. But you have to figure out what's their motivation. Are they still looking to sell? Where do they want to go? Then you have to solve that problem, because if you can't help them move, they're not going anywhere. But again, sellers don't put their home up for fun just to have random strangers walking through every Sunday, right? They're not doing that. There is a motivation and need to sell, and that's something we can tap into.
And one thing there is, anyone spoken to a seller, like Olivier was saying, who says, I would like to sell my house, but I don't know where to go? Do you have any marketing material that you can show that seller what makes you different from other agents to help them find their new house? Are you guys following me on the path? So if I'm sitting there as a seller and I said, I'm concerned about where I'm gonna go, and I talk to 3 agents, and one of the 3 agents gives me printed material saying, this is what I do to help my sellers find a new property. This is how I'll market you to find your new property. It's gonna make me stand out from the other agents. I see some blank stares. Does everyone know what I'm talking about with this? Think about it. You should have a plan written on your steps you take to help that seller find their next house. And listen, they might find it on the MLS like everything else, but at least have a plan that you can demonstrate to them to take that concern away. Because what happens is when you list the house, most of the time they're gonna find something else. But you have to come over that barrier and that objection. So having a written plan of what you can do to help them find their next house will help you cross that hurdle with some sellers.
Anyone here have a seller or recently went on a listing appointment where the seller says, you know what, the numbers are great, but where am I going?
Right.
That's what we're talking about.
That's what we're talking about.
If you don't solve that problem, they're not going anywhere, right? So you have to be 2 steps ahead of it. And again, these withdrawals and expireds for the last 3 years, it's a little bit of work. I don't know which MLS is easier with this, but some MLSs make it easy where you can look at the historical listing archive, and you could see if it came back on the market. But you just go through them in your town, your county, whatever you want, and you will find homes that did not come back on the market. I actually did this with an agent 2 weeks ago, and we did see that a lot of homes are coming back on the market. Missed opportunities, but there are still many that have not relisted for multiple reasons. Off-market properties. Anyone here close anything off-market from a wholesaler? No? Anyone here ever get emails, off-market deal, need some work? Show of hands, right? They are sourcing their properties the same strategies we are using and talking about today. But there's a big amount of inventory, and it's growing year over year, that the wholesalers are getting. So love them or hate them, why not play with them if they have the inventory that your buyers are looking for? And I've heard it, oh, they're all distressed properties. That is not the case. Oh, they're not in the suburbs. That is not the case. Has anyone here gotten mail that says, we'll buy your home cash? Right? That is where they're sourcing their properties. And you know what they're doing with those properties? Reselling them. They're assigning them. Their goal is not to keep them forever. Their goal is to find a buyer that can buy the properties. What is that for you guys? That's inventory. So it's another means to figure out how to generate inventory for your clients. How do you get to the wholesalers? Facebook investment groups. When you get those emails, sign up for their newsletters in their email list. Full disclosure, I've bought several properties from wholesalers during this pandemic when there was no inventory. So it works. Speaking from experience, I get the emails daily with deals. I get mailers at home saying, we want to buy your house. But that's another means. And it's not all distressed properties. It's not all in commercial areas. They're suburbs. Just as you guys are getting these mailers, people respond and they get inventory. Anyone here ever get a referral? 1, 2, no? Right? How many people here would say the business is relationship-based? We just looked at a stat a couple times already this year that 75% of the transactions are happening through repeat and referral clients. Would anyone agree? Great. So leverage your relationships with listing agents. Get the inventory before it's listed.
So Olivier, you were a listing agent
Was.
in your prior life.
Was.
Did you ever get an offer from an agent and you're like, oh, this is gonna be bad?
I have.
You have?
I have.
I've gotten that where you get the offer from the agent and you just can't get a prior deal or something out of your head.
Absolutely.
Vice versa, have you ever gotten that agent that sends the offer and you're like, well, this is gonna close because you have a good relationship with that agent?
I got to tell you another story. I had a couple agents that would call me every other week and say, I have these buyers. What do you have coming? I know you have some inventory coming on. And we did some deals that way.
As a listing agent, I did a couple deals with Olivier Lewis as the buyer's agent, and Olivier, I knew, would bring it to the closing table. So it works. And he brought both to the closing table.
Correct. Although I could never talk to Carl. He did not want anything to do with me.
But the point is relationships. How many of you here feel like you've gotten a deal because you had a good relationship with the other agent?
Exactly.
Right? So, and how many times did you not get a deal and you just wanted to explode on the agent? It's fair, we shouldn't be. But relationships are so key in this business. People want to work with people they like. So if everything's equal and you know you're going to have a good experience with that agent, who do you think is going to get the offer? Is that other agent. So it's so important to be doubling down on your relationships with other agents. And I think right now the industry is agents are not working well with other agents because everybody's stressed out.
Yep.
Everybody's on the tipping point right now. Everybody's frustrated. We talk to a lot of agents and we hear a lot of the same things. Has anyone here got an offer accepted and was highest and best situation, and then past the deadline, another offer comes in and you get kicked out?
Yep.
And you get frustrated because there's no communication from the other agent? Right? Relationships with agents are more important now than ever.
I want to double down on that because I know a couple agents in here that have done several deals through their relationships without it being on the market, right? Show of hands, anyone here ever help a buyer without it being listed? Absolutely, it happens. And there's plenty more. I know some people may be shy to raise their hands, but guys, leverage your relationships. Do what you're gonna say with the listing agent. If you can close a deal, as I closed my one or two with Carl, right? He knew the second time around, okay, Olivier's gonna close, he's gonna do what he's gonna say. And what happens is once you have that relationship, follow up. True story. I had several agents consistently calling me every 2 weeks whenever they got a hot new buyer. Hey, what do you have coming on? I got a buyer. You know I'll close. And as a listing agent, what do you care about? Just getting it to close. Smooth. Hassle-free. Not having to do the other agent's job. Anyone here ever feel like they did the other agent's job? Isn't that fun? Right? So build on your relationships. Do you have great rapport with the listing agent? Don't be afraid to call them and say, hey, what do you have coming on? I have X, Y, and Z buyers, and I'll get it closed. And they'll remember you if you did what you were going to say. Open houses. Anyone think open houses are going to be a bigger thing? There's going to be more of them in 2022? Especially now, the weather's changing, we're heading into spring. Who here thinks, show of hands, that we're gonna have more open houses and sellers are gonna ask for more of them? I'd agree, right? I'd agree. And buyers think they can get right to the listing agent from the open house, right? That's a good reason. But what are you doing? What's your plan when you go to the open house? And this is funny because this is gonna tie right back to the farming letter, a follow-up. It's a follow-up. Right? So when you're doing an open house, knock on 5 doors to the left, 5 doors to the right, 10 doors across the street. Meet 5 neighbors. Don't sell them. Invite them to the open house. You don't have to tell them that your circle of excellence magenta, which is Carl's favorite color. You don't have to tell them that, you won 5 awards during Realtor Oscar season, right? Show value. I'm not just a realtor, I'm also a neighbor, so I wanted to meet you. Wanted to invite you to the open house. But here's where the magic happens with open houses. Follow up. Follow up, follow up, follow up. After the open house, preferably in person, going to the seller and saying, hey, you saw the line the other day, or you saw the line 2 hours ago, I have demand. What are your long-term plans with the home? Do you know what your equity position is? Karen just mentioned something great for St. Patrick's Day tomorrow. Do you know how much gold you have in your home? Right? But it's the follow-up. It's not just the, hey, I'm hosting an open house, here's a black and white or a color printout flyer, come join me. I got cookies, right? It's not just that, it's the follow-up. And I think that's where they see the results of your marketing. You don't have to speak about driving traffic. You don't have to speak about what you're gonna do in generating offers, but now I have demand. What are your long-term plans with the home? Would you sell for the right price? Do you need a CMA? Do you wanna find out how much gold you have in the house? Right? So that's where the conversion happens, guys. It's not the first action, it's the multiple steps and the process. So hopefully you guys are looking at the process and not just, hey, I do this one thing. Hey, Olivier, you said go knock on doors. I knocked on 20 doors. I didn't get a seller. No, it's the follow-up in the process. If it were just knocking on doors, wouldn't we all agree that every agent would be knocking on doors all day long? It's not the knocking on the doors. It's the follow-up, it's the building relationships, and that's why I said first step is not to sell. Introduce yourself. Introduce yourself. Let them get to know you. What's the funnel of sales? People have to know you, like you, then what? Trust you, right? So when you just go in for the sale, they don't know you yet. They may not even like you yet. You're ringing their doorbell, interrupting them while they're watching TV, right? But let them get to know you, like you, then they will trust you. So let's talk about upgrading your old buyers. I did this as an agent. It was actually fun and exciting. Anyone here ever have a buyer and you know it's not their forever house? Dan is shaking his head, right? It's not their forever house and they're like, you know what? We need to move, but if you find that one, let me know. Anyone else besides Dan? Yeah? Good.
Olivier, I think that happened with you.
That did.
You were dealing with a dominant, professional, incredible listing agent named Carl Sanfilippo. And you sold him a house in Roselle.
Yep.
I think this was in the REO day, 60,000, 90,000?
It was under 100.
Under 100?
It was under 100, definitely under 100.
You know, it was a seamless, easy process. The listing agent handled everything, as usual. You know those deals where you feel like you did everything? Anyway, so they closed. What eventually happened to that buyer who probably should have reached out to the listing agent that did everything? But what eventually happened to that buyer?
So I kept an eye open because kids started to grow and they wanted to change school systems. Also, they were in medical school at the time when they bought Carl's listing, but I kept in touch, follow-up guys, and they became physicians. They both became physicians. They were both in medical school. And I kept in touch, and I one day found another REO in Mendham. So I moved them from Roselle to Mendham. It was my biggest upgrade. And I told them that. I was like, guys, this is like fun. Like I'm taking you from a 60,000 to like I think it was high sevens, right? But I kept my eye, and I literally showed them one home. Literally one home. I knew what they were looking for. We kept in touch. I followed up. Guys, keep your eye on the prize. It didn't happen in this particular case, but if I had another buyer looking for their home, I could have just easily sourced the inventory. I did put it on the market, sold their home with no problem. But your buyers, especially the ones where you know it's not their forever home, it's their starter home, or they have life changes, you can upgrade them. And through upgrading them, you can source inventory for other buyers, especially when they don't want to go on the market, right? A lot of people just don't want to go on the market. So if you can keep your eye, if you can follow up, pay attention to life changes and listen to what their needs are. Pay attention when they're telling you what they're really looking for. Understand if they're settling because we're in a competitive market and there's not enough inventory, and you can upgrade them, but through upgrading them, now you have inventory. And a lot of times they'll just say, listen, I'll buy that house, but I need it contingent. I don't want to deal with all this headache, and you can source inventory that way. Would anyone kind of agree some of these strategies work? What do you think, Carl?
I think a lot of them do.
Right? But they only work if you guys do the work. And this is what I said before at the beginning. It's not one of these. We're in a super competitive market. You might have to implement many of these strategies, right? As Carl asked before, how many people have more than one buyer? It's not going to be the one thing. It's not going to be that one door knock. It's not going to be that one farming letter. It's not going to be just your social media post. It's a combination of things that you need to do. But as an industry, guys, we all need to be more outbound.
Right. And to piggyback off of that, a lot of this goes to your mindset. I heard a realtor the other day get a phone call from a new buyer, and the realtor sounded depressed. They were like, oh, you want to buy a house. Right? And we all laugh because we know what it's like, but what message are we sending to that potential buyer? Do you think that's encouraging for that buyer to hear that? Do you think that buyer is now excited to work with you? I'm ready to make the biggest purchase of my life. I found you through XYZ. I call, I'm all excited, and you just, boom, deflate me. Do you think you're going to build loyalty like that? No, you're not going to build loyalty like that. You need to stay excited. You need to encourage them. We're going to find a house. Yes, buyer, I know it's so competitive. I know our offer didn't get accepted, but I am here to find you that house and give you the experience that you deserve. Keep the consumer in mind. I talk about it all the time. I've listened to thousands of Zillow calls for teams and agents that I've coached. And I can't tell you how many times I've heard a call get picked up and the agent goes, hello? Well, this is encouraging. Hi, how are you? Right? What about, hi, this is Carl from Remax. Do you guys want to be the Four Seasons or do you want to be the Howard Johnson of the industry? Right? People don't remember how much they pay, they remember the experience. So you just got to, if you're going to do anything and take one thing out of this, is how do you keep providing that first-class, amazing experience for your clients? Because the more you do that, the more you're going to win.
And you know what happens too? Buyer loses one offer, two offers, three offers. Who do they blame? Anyone? The agent. Sometimes they do, right? You're the bearer of bad news time after time after time. Why can't you do something? Get me an offer accepted. And that's why we have to step out of our comfort zones and be more proactive to shop your buyers and look to get the inventory. Because if you have a buyer and they lose 1, 2, 3 offers, but you can source some off market for them, or you can find, hey, I got this one house, it's not listed, no pictures, so you gotta follow me and meet me there. Do you think that buyer's going somewhere else? Do you think they're gonna blame you? That's a solution to retain buyers, right? But in that solution, you can also get deals done. And it's just a mindset shift of instead of waiting for the hot sheet, waiting for the inventory, go create the inventory. And that's not always the focus because prior markets, we're just used to like, hey, 10 new listings today. Which ones do you want to see? Right?
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
What do you have loyalty to when you have a buyer and you start sourcing listings? Because this happened to me, and you get this property and you're so excited, so you're ready to buy it, bring your buyer. The buyer said, okay, I'm going to give $700,000. It's a lot of money, but you know if you put that house on the market, you possibly get $770.
Yep.
So
You don't represent, in that case, you don't represent the seller. You don't represent the seller. Excuse me?
The transaction agency.
Yes, you're just representing the buyer, so you have your loyalty to the buyer. Now, if that offer doesn't get accepted and you represent the seller, obviously you get the listing, it's a dual agency if you have another buyer. But in a case where you're finding something that's not listed and you're negotiating that offer, you are the buyer agent. You represent the buyer. You do not represent the seller.
But our office does not do transaction agency, that's all we does, do an agency.
Well, you're not a dual agent if the office doesn't have the listing, right? If the office doesn't represent the seller, it's not a dual agency.
Okay? All right.
So real quick stats, if you're doubting, hey, Olivier, I gotta go source off-market deals. Hey, I gotta go create inventory. Last year, New Jersey Association of Realtors, everyone can see this highlighted, 130,000 home sales, right? 130,000. Does anyone here remember the stat that Carl gave at the beginning? What percentage of sellers use the realtor? So what does that leave? If 90% of home sellers worked with an agent, 10% did not work with an agent, 10 times $130,000 sales leaves what? 13,000 opportunities. Do we notice the trend? Trend is the inventory is there. There's only an inventory crunch when you don't have the inventory, but it's there. 13,000 opportunities in New Jersey, just based on that. We just need to go source them. We need to shop our buyers. We need to be a little more outbound, and you can get more deals done. And you know what's the best part of this 13,000? No multiple offers, no highest and best, no bidding wars.
How do you combat, a seller that will say, well, why would I sell it to you off market when I can put it on the market and get a bidding for?
That seller's gonna list their home. But the sellers that want convenience, timing, they don't want the hassle, kids, elder family, there's a lot of sellers that don't care about that.
And I would say to the seller that if you're going to list the home, my job is to help you navigate through the 15 offers you're going to get. Because I always say the best offer is not always the highest one, it's the one that gets to the closing table.
Correct.
Because what do we see a lot with multiple offer situations? Someone go really crazy, aggressive to get the house, and then do they ever end up getting a little bit of buyer's remorse? Yeah. Has anyone seen that home inspector come in that's got 4 flashlights and they bought the platinum package from the home inspector because they're ready to get some of that money back. Whether they need it or not.
Yep.
Or an attorney review, oh, we're gonna do this, this, and this. No problem, we put it in the contract and the attorney says we're not doing any of that.
Yep.
So I always tell sellers, it's not always the highest offer, the terms and everything, and we can help you navigate through that process.
Exactly. So, what to know? Listen to discover the seller's needs. To your question about the seller that wants to put on the market and get multiple offers, well, they care about yielding the best price. Anyone here go on a listing appointment and ask, what's the most important aspect of the sale, and it's not about price? Right? So listen to the seller's needs. Find out what's more important to them. Think outside the box in sourcing the inventory. Offer options, set expectations, and our magic 2 words. On 3, everyone. 1, 2, 3. Wow. Exactly.
And one thing about asking questions for the seller needs, one of my favorite questions I used to ask sellers that I don't think enough people ask, I would say, hey, Olivier.
What's that, Carl?
What's the best way for me to communicate with you?
I'm busy during the day, so text me during the day, but at night you can call me.
Perfect. Do you know why I asked that question? You go list my dad's house and start texting him. He's gonna wanna fire you 3 days into the listing agreement. Right? His Nokia is not gonna know how to text back.
What's a Nokia?
You never played Snake? Come on, it's the best.
Kidding.
I know. But right, so ask how to communicate. Your job is to make the best experience for the seller. And you know how frustrating it is? Who here has tried to get an agent on the phone to talk about the offer, and then the agent just texts you, and you get frustrated with the agent? Has that happened to anybody? So think about your seller. Here I am, I list my house with Olivier, not that Olivier would do that because he was always an incredible listing agent.
Thank you.
And I'm trying to get Olivier on the phone and he's just texting me. How do you think our relationship's gonna be? Are we gonna create friction? So just asking simple questions. Another question I used to ask sellers is, what do you expect from me as your agent? Do you know why? Sometimes their expectations was something I couldn't meet. I expect you to be at every listing. I expect you to be on beck and call. I expect an open house every Sunday. I would expect that you need to find a new agent. Because as you guys have heard in my trainings before, I always say sometimes the best listing you can take are the ones you pass on. I've been there where I've signed a seller up, I walked out of the front door, and I said, I can't believe I just committed 6 months of my life to this person. So sometimes if you ask the right questions, what happens? Relationships get fractured when expectations aren't being met.
And I want to say, we had an incredible R4 this year. For anyone that hasn't made it out, you gotta go to R4. And Brian Buffini gets on the stage. Everyone here know Brian Buffini, right? And he's like, you know what's funny? People keep telling me, I'm hearing that I'm washed up. I've been doing this for 35 years, and they think they know my spiel, they know my stick, it's dated, technology's replaced everything. And you know what the facts are? 75 to 80% of all transactions last year happened through referral and repeat business. Don't overcomplicate it, guys. This stuff works. We look for the shiny objects sometimes. We look for a faster way to do it, more efficient way. Efficient isn't always effective. You have to make connections. You have to reach people. You have to listen. You have to follow up. And all of this stuff works. You can do a lot more deals implementing these strategies and just sticking to the relationships and the people business. So, you need the 3 C's. Carl, this is your this is actually yours, so I'll let you cover this.
Right, in this business, it comes down to 3 simple things. I call it the 3 C's because my name is Carl, so it's just that easy, right? The first one, you need clarity. What do you want in this business? What are your goals? When you have clarity and you know what you want, it makes your day a lot easier. What happens is, what gets real tough is when you start going in a lot of different directions. I talk to a lot of agents. Some of you probably heard me say this, right? Especially they join our organization, they're so excited, they want to do this, they want to do that. I always say, if you go in 17 different directions, do you know what direction you're going to go in? You're going to go down. You need to have clarity. I always say you want to go deep, not wide. You want to master things. When I wrestled, I was okay at 10 moves. I was an okay wrestler. I had friends who dominated 2 moves that you could not stop. They were all Americans. They were full scholarship. One made it all the way to the Olympic trials. And he had 2 moves you couldn't stop. I always talk about Mariano Rivera. Olivier, who's Mariano Rivera?
So we got to unpack that a little bit. Carl says something like, the closer, Mariano Rivera. And I'm like, yeah. And Carl looks
like,
at me.
you don't know who Mariano Rivera is, do you? I was like, that kills my whole joke.
So I instantly Google it, and I'm like, oh, okay, the guy was a good baseball player.
Mariano Rivera was the best relief pitcher ever. Felix, you know who Mariano Rivera is, right? Best baseball pitcher, reliever, Hall of Famer. You know how many pitches he had? He had 1 pitch that nobody could hit. 1 pitch, he had a cutter. You don't need to be okay at 10 things. You need to master 2 things.
And one thing with clarity, guys, to my point earlier, if you're farming, if you're door knocking, if you're meeting people from open houses, don't give mixed messages. Don't try to sell 5 different things, right? You need clarity to say, hey, I want to connect with you. I want to be your real estate resource.
And you need to be confident. If you walk into a seller's house in this market and you're not confident about your listing presentation, you're not confident about your marketing, you're not confident about your process, they are going to see right through you. Period.
And you need to be more confident than the FISBOs, right?
Right. You need to be confident about what you're doing. And I get it. I remember my first listing appointment, I was not confident. And everybody could tell, right? But you know what? You got to get on, you got to improve. So I always say too, is you should be role-playing your listing presentation, because you're either going to be role-playing with somebody you know, or you're going to be role-playing with the actual seller. And it's a lot more awkward role-playing with the actual seller.
You got a lot more to lose as well.
Sorry, Mr. Mogerman, that was a bad, but it was my first one. Kid I wrestled with, it was his father, and I was terrible. I wouldn't list with me. He's like, I'm going with somebody else. I'm like, I don't blame you. And you know what happens too when you get more confident with your listing presentation? This one I just stress so much. You suddenly become more confident in your listing prospecting. This is the truth. If you're not 100% confident in your listing presentation, and I like to use the word listing process, are you giving everybody the same experience every time you go in to list their house? If you're not confident with that, you're not going to be confident getting the listing appointment. Because what happens is if you get the listing appointment, you're not confident in your listing presentation, you're like, oh shoot, I gotta go there now and pitch them. I'm just not gonna prospect for listings, but I'm gonna tell people I want listings because that's what's cool on social media. So the more confident you're at your listing process, the more listings you're gonna get. And third is you need consistency.
Yep.
Bottom line, if you're gonna do anything in this business, you gotta be consistent at it. It's not fun, right? You don't see consistency on social media. Like, hey, look at me, I'm being consistent. Like, you don't. But it's what separates people in this business, is being consistent, being confident, having clarity on what you want to do, and being consistent can be very boring. It can be extremely boring. But being able to get through that is what's going to separate people in this business. And the ones who are the most consistent now are the ones who are going to win.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So the game plan, you may have to implement multiple of these strategies to find your buyer of properties. One alone will not work. But guys, we promise you, if you do the work, it will work. Thank you all. Appreciate it. Let us know if you have any questions.